So let's be pretty honest right now. There really are only a few key things that you should and need to be doing to grow your business. And there are a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing. And this is exactly why I wanted to share this episode with you. I bring on Lautman, which does a phenomenal job in this interview, really showcasing what are the things that you can be doing today and really soon so you are able to focus on those few key things that really matter. Those few things that really matter when it comes to you building your business, you growing your profits, and you doing the work that you really love as well. Because there are so many things that you shouldn't be doing. There are so many things that are just going to be sucking away your time that you're not going to be that good at, or if you're okay at, you still shouldn't be doing. This is actually a big part of what we do in the Pro Circle. We actually do an exercise called the time audit, where we go through 3 things: the things that you shouldn't be doing, the things that you should be delegating, the things that you should just be then automating, and then breaking it down to the few key things that really matter for your business to grow, for your profits to grow, and for you to enjoy the work that you do each and every day. Also, I would love for you to join us in the Fitness Business Success Circle if you haven't already. This is the free and private group where you're going to get access to the guides, the live streams, the fitness business quiz, plus I'm in there answering questions along with over 1,200, 1,300 other top quality coaches around the world. So join the link, because I'll pop a link below for you to be able to do that as well. So I'm really looking forward to you getting back to us after listening to this episode, because there's going to be a few things where this is going to rattle some cages in this episode. So I'd love to know, what are the jobs that you want to give off? What are you going to do from after listening to this episode? And how are you going to grow your ultimate fitness business? Lewis, thank you very much for coming onto the Ask the Pro show. I'm pumped to have you here because we're diving into some very important topics, especially because I'm actually really reaching out to you as well, because I want to learn a bit about what we're diving into today. Because we met, and I want to make sure I get this right, it was a couple of years ago in Bangkok. We were actually sitting on the same table in a mastermind, and I got a ton of help from you, and that was absolutely awesome. So I've always been really appreciative of what you've been able to do to help me, and I'm really happy to be able to share everything that you are the absolute Mac Daddy at as well. So firstly, Lewis, thank you so much for taking the time out and being here.
Yeah, Chris, my pleasure. I'm honored to be able to share whatever I can with you and your guests and your people that will be listening.
All right. So, in a nutshell, Lewis, who are you? Why are you so phenomenal? And why are you the Mr. Miyagi when it starts coming to outsourcing for the teams?
Yeah, well, I'm just a regular guy from the United States, but I'll tell you what, I'm about to be 40 years old, and what I've learned over the last 40 years is that if you want to be successful in life, if you want to be successful in business, you can't do it alone. And the majority of us who want to live a happy life, you might find your dream job, but if you don't, you're probably out there as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, trying to find your way to create a lifestyle that works for you, involved in some kind of product or service that makes you happy. But all the while, you're realizing that there's all these different things that you have to do. And really, that's what led me into starting a virtual assistant company, is that I just wanted to be a happy guy. I just want to live my life, do what I want to do, enjoy life. And I realized I needed money, many, many years ago. And I started selling different products and services over the years. But what I realized as I was building other businesses, and this is how I started the outsourcing company. I had another company that I started back in 2003. It was an entrepreneur training company, and we sold content. And I did it for about 7, 8 years. But I realized that I couldn't do it alone, and I needed a lot of help. And I started hiring people in the United States. And long story short, I started going broke is what happened. Probably I could have upped my sales. I probably could have worked on my business processes and systems. And I'd heard about, hiring remote staff. So I didn't have to rely on an office. I didn't have to be living in one location. And, probably like everybody else, I tried all the different websites. I tried hiring people, you name it, from, Bangladesh to Uruguay to Romania. I mean, you name it. I just had horror story after horror story. And, what had happened was I discovered the Philippines, and that's where I felt most comfortable with the quality of English that people in the Philippines were using. And slowly but surely, I was actually building a team for my other business. I had no intention of starting a virtual assistant company. I was building a team to support my entrepreneur training company. So I had some telemarketers, some web developers, some graphic designers, some video editors. And I had all these different people who were there to support my other business. And word started getting out about how I was supporting and growing and building my company from 2007 to about 2010 for about 3 years. It was an interesting transition because, lo and behold, I would have clients, I would have colleagues, I would just have friends and associates say, Louis, you have these people in the Philippines. Do they do this? Do they do that? And I was like, yeah, they do that. Why are you asking? And they say, well, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And, I thought nothing of it. I'd be like, yeah, sure. Let me connect you with one of my people, just they'll get done whatever you need. And how many ever hours it is, I'll bill you for it. And I was just kind of helping friends out. And it really came to a point, Chris, where it's almost like an identity shift for me because I just started realizing I'm almost generating more revenue, doing this, just talking to friends and colleagues than I was with my other business. And, it took me, like I said, a good couple of years to shift my identity of who I was and what I was up to from, the content creator and, being the one who's out there selling entrepreneur info to supporting entrepreneurs from a service standpoint. And about 2010 was when I went full time with it. And I realized, there are a lot of other people who were in a position that I was in where there's a lot of different reasons to find remote staff. Some people, they may not have access in their general, close proximity or geographic area. Other people, they may want to do a cost savings. Other people, it just may mesh better with their lifestyle. So, there's a lot of different options, there's a lot of different types of services that you can outsource. It's not just someone, doing data entry all day. You'd be amazed at the kinds of different things that you can have remote staff, working for you. The way I think about it is, they're human beings, sitting at their computer and they have a specific skill set. If you need something done, you can find someone that has that skill set. And I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. I had people disappearing on me at all the time. And, I was up the wee hours of the night interviewing people. Horror story after horror story. I'll just tell you flat out. But what had happened was, over time, I had started building a quality team, and then I had started learning strategies about maintaining the quality team as well as attracting high quality team members. And, I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of other people out there, where you can hire someone, but if you don't know who you're hiring or someone that you know, trust, necessarily vouch for them, you never really know what you're getting yourself into. So I know, and part of our strategy, I learned this from another Aussie down there, James Shremko. I'll never forget him. Great guy. Told me back
I'm probably about 15 minutes from where he lives right now.
If you bump into him, you got to tell him I say hello and let him know that he really helped me build my business. But back in 2010, I'll never forget because I was telling him about some of the. He has a lot of people out in the Philippines, and I was telling him about some of the challenges that I was having back then. We were sitting having lunch one time in Manila, and I'll never forget. He said, secret to our success is we don't hire strangers. We don't just post ads. He's like, all of our people. He's like, all of our family. He called it a family. Is all internal referrals. We incentivize the internal team to bring people that they know, that they've worked with in the past, that they trust. And I was like, boy, that's brilliant. Because I was hiring strangers, and you never know. You could win, you could lose. But now that we are building that kind of, call it a family, call it a team, but people who can vouch for other people that they've worked with, it's just going to increase the likelihood of finding quality team members. And that's what we've been doing ever since. And, what they say, the rest is history. But, my thing is just helping people do more of what they love by getting rid of the stuff that they don't like. There's so much stuff I don't like doing. I just outsourced my taxes to my accountant. I got him the numbers and I said, look, I don't like doing that. You do that stuff. And he just, got it done, which is fantastic. So that's an example of things that you can outsource. And, once you begin the process of outsourcing, you'd be surprised, at least for me and a lot of people I know, you'll want to outsource more of the stuff that you don't like so you can focus on the stuff that you do like.
It's so true. Firstly, I love the Genesis story because it's really, you just were scratching your own itch and you've been able to evolve into something that's got such immense power and impact. And especially why I reached out to you, because I was like, look, I need to continue to build my team right now. And this is obviously you said a mindset shift before, and I think that's so true with where we have to evolve as an entrepreneur, because we have to really sit down and figure out, what am I really good at and what am I okay at that I still shouldn't be doing. And this is something I'm doing with my clients right now, sitting down, because I've had to do it myself. It's like, okay, what are your superpowers? What are those just few things that you should be doing on a day-by-day basis that your business needs you to be doing for it to thrive and grow? And what are the other things that you need to be able to bring team members in on? So like for myself, I was like, all right, I need an executive assistant, someone that's high-end. There's a podcast editor, a video editor. I need a project manager, a content manager. Like there's so many team members, and especially as to the reasons why. It's funny because we were talking, like, obviously before we hit the record button, like, I've just left Bali, I'm here now in Sydney, and literally my wife Lauren and I are like, well, where do we go in the world now? We're like, what's going on? That isn't congruent to having a brick and mortar, like, staff, office, everyone coming to this one place. Like, that would never work. So obviously for me, I'm like, okay, I really do want to be able to create a virtual family, and I think that's a great way to think about it as well, because that's the way it needs to be. How do I create this family for us to work congruently? So I would love to be able to jump in first. How do we know when to start bringing team members on board, when you think of the right things and maybe the starting task for us, and then going into how do we best hire, and then how do we best manage the team? So first question, when we bring it on back then, is what are the best tasks for us to start thinking about as an entrepreneur, what we need to start giving away?
So I'll answer that question in a second. But the real interesting thing is, most of us, when we get involved in business, there's not an instruction manual, right?
Yeah.
We figure out and we think about, we hear these people, they own a business and they've got free time, or they own a business, they have no free time. There's different people we look up to, different people that we learn from, but there's no real one model that teaches us how to do what needs to be done in order to get the results that we want in our business. And it's interesting because what you learn real quick is that there's a lot more to do in your business than you probably once thought. Anyone who tries to build a website for the first time, and if you're not a web developer, you could spend, and this was my story. I'll never forget back in 2002, 2003, when I started to build my first website, I spent 6 months, literally 6 months, trying to get a homepage together. I knew nothing about building a website.
Is that awesome?
And this was, before, WordPress and all these easier, template and site makers. There were some out there. And I'll never forget, I was like, I've just spent 6 months of my life and I did nothing else other than trying to build a website. Like every waking hour was trying to build a website. And I crumbled. I said, you know what? I've spent 6 months of my life, and I'm talking, 8-10 hours a day, Chris. Yeah. And I said, all I need to do is spend $500 and I'll have my website. I wish I could have went back in time, ponied up that $500, and then I could have started the whole process of building out my company. But, I learned the hard way. Hopefully a lot of other people aren't learning the hard way. Like you said, focus on your magic, your talent, your gift, what you do best, and find other people and systems to do all the other things. So that's the first thing I would suggest to people, is figure out, what do you love to do in your business? What are you better at than most people? Because a lot of people, they're the technical person. A lot of other people, they're the social person, the salesperson, the marketing person, or they're the process person, or, whatever it is, but figure out what it is that you do. And, I learned this one from Roger Hamilton. Really figuring out what you do, but surrounding yourself with the other team members that complement what it is that you do. Yeah. Because if you're the creator, the visionary, and you got your head up in the clouds, you need someone else who's got their feet on the ground, to pull you back down and make sure that things get done. If you're the salesperson and you're out talking all the time, you probably don't have the technical ability or the wherewithal to get down and, flush out all the details. So these are the things that everybody should get real clear on. What do they like to do? What do they do best? And then get real clear on what needs to happen in my business. When we first get started, chances are we're probably all trying to do it all. Everything, right? But then my suggestion is figure out, what can you give to somebody else? Imagine if they're the best person, they wanted you to win, they were on board. Can you trust someone else to handle that process? I learned something a long time ago, and this was a real big difference maker for me is, you ever see an org chart in a business?
Yep.
Like the organizational chart? Well, for most of us, if you had a blank one, you would probably write your name in every single one. I'm the CEO, I'm the marketing director, I'm the salesperson, I'm, the HR person, I'm all these
the
people.
Janitor, yeah.
The janitor, right? I mean, you're locking the door at night, or you're doing it all. Well, a suggestion was made to me, and I did this, 15 years ago, but it made a huge difference to me, was create your dream organizational chart for your company, what you want your business to look like, and then put your name in where you want it to be. It might just be founder, CEO, and then fill in. You don't need to find necessarily the people yet, but fill in the roles that you want in your business. Maybe you want a social media director. Maybe you want, an events manager. Maybe you fill in the blank. And maybe your organizational chart has 10 roles in it. Maybe it has 5. Maybe it has 2. Maybe it has 20. But fill in those roles, and then immediately your name goes in all of them, because you're stuck there, the solo entrepreneur doing it all. But very quickly start to identify who can you find that you can start putting in these roles. And a lot of people think, well, I'm just starting my business. I don't have a lot of money. I've got to do it all. Well, sometimes you don't have to pay people. You might be able to partner with them, or you might be able to work on commission, or you might be able to work some kind of an affiliate agreement, or maybe it's not a full-time hire, it's a part-time hire, or you can find a virtual assistant who's not located in Australia or in the United States, but works in a remote location where you can get their services at a significant discount. And that's the need that we fill by providing virtual assistants, project managers out of the Philippines, so you can get quality work at a discounted price. So really, when you get started, that's my suggestion. What needs to be delegated first will be different for every business, but get clear on what you want to do and what needs to happen, and then start filling in the other roles, because you don't have to even hire someone on a part-time or full-time. It might just be, do this one task. Yeah. There's that old website Fiverr. Here's $5, right? Just do this one thing for me. Maybe you have a family member that will help you out. But yeah, I would suggest getting real clear on what are all the things. And, on my free time, I don't know about you, like sometimes things pop into my head and I always capture them, because I realize when I don't write them down or type them, I lose them. And then a month later, I'm like, oh, I got to do that thing. So I just have an ongoing list of stuff that's always needing to get done. Some of it's one time, some of it's ongoing. But immediately I capture it and then I file it. File it is either I give it to a person that needs to do it, or I schedule a time for me to do it, or I delete it if it's
so good. So good.
Yeah,
and it's you just gave pure gold then with the actual process. I love that org chart, like scenario and that exercise. That is something I'm going to steal that, because I think that's so powerful to be able to sit there and get a really good plan of going, okay, this is what I want it to look like, and then getting a really clear idea of these are the exact roles, so then you know exactly what it is that you need to be doing. But especially, and actually I learned this from Shramko as well, was if there's anything that needs to be done more than once, there has to be a checklist and an SOP to it. So then being able to put your checklist hat, and what's that book? The Checklist Manifesto. That would be a great book for everyone to be able to dive into, because then you can understand how the systems you can create behind the business. Because once the system's running the business, then there's a process that you can rely on that's going to be able to work over and over. That is pure gold, Lewis. I really love where you've done that. Okay, now, how do we go about actually hiring someone? Let's just say, for instance, we want a general virtual assistant to come on board. This is obviously a really common position for someone to take on, does a lot of administrative work, can handle the things that obviously gets off our plate, what we shouldn't be doing. How do we go about that process?
Well, it's a great segue, Chris, because you said it, the standard operating procedures. I mean, that is probably one of the most things that I could pinpoint, between success and failure, is if you look at the mundane tasks that are ultra important for the business to get done, but they're not necessarily important for the business owner to do them. Those are the kinds of things to decide, okay, this needs to get done, but why am I doing this? Anyone could do this. Those are the kinds of things that you start to delegate. And like you just said, I would create a standard operating procedure behind it. Any kind of task that is repetitive or needs to be done, like you said, more than once, it should be documented to the point where whatever that task is, you could hand someone a piece of paper, access to a Google document, some kind of point, steps 1 through 5 or steps 1 through 100, whatever it is, and someone could just read, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And it's very sequential, which is why it's good to start your business, you being the solopreneur, figuring it all out, and then creating the standard, because you know it needs to be done. You know how it needs to be done, and then making sure. And then, and then making sure they get done. And that's what's really important, is that everybody has their own style and flavor of management or leadership or inspecting the work that they expect to be done. So it's really important when you go about hiring your first person, you talk about getting a general virtual assistant, is that you, one, have enough work for them. So some people are like, all right, I'll pay you $500 a week or, $1,000, whatever the number is. And they're paying for 40 hours and they might only be getting 10, 15 hours of work, but they're getting that amount of output because they're not giving enough input. So we as business owners, when we delegate this work out, we need to take the responsibility to make sure that not only are we giving them enough work to do, we're giving them the proper instruction and we're giving the proper inspection of the work and the proper feedback. Because if we leave them out on their own, and listen, I learned this one the hard way, hired somebody, paid them a bunch of money up front, sat back thinking, this is great, it's all going to be done. I show up a few days later and nothing was done and they, took my money. So it's important to have, and I suggest this for all clients, but again, everyone kind of manages how they want, is when you delegate a task, is ask the virtual assistant to say either an estimate of how long it will be, or if you want to tell them, this is how long I want you to invest in that. Because a lot of times I give them a task and they think they can put for hours. You're like, no, I only wanted you to put an hour into that. And then I've got all this other stuff you have to do. So it's really important to have this, two-way communication and confirmation upon the agreement of how long each thing should take, and then following up. So you might give someone, one day 10 different items, and, it might take 20 hours to finish 10 different items. So you might ask them, how long should this take, or you're telling them, I want this to take an hour, that to take 3, that to take 4, but then let them know there's also deadlines on the certain work. And a lot of times project management software will handle this. There's a lot of different kinds of project management software out there. Some people like talking, how we're talking on video. A lot of people like to do that with their virtual assistant. Some people never want to talk. They don't even want to see them. They just want to type into project management software, post stuff, get it done, and that's fine. Everybody has a different flavor. But again, you're dealing with a human being. So on the hiring standpoint, you want to make sure that your personality is congruent and cohesive and synergistic with the person that you're hiring. So the way that you expect the virtual assistant to work within your framework, you want to make them as aware of as possible as you can with what your framework is and what that looks like based on how they want to work also. Because you might think, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to talk to my VA. We're going to go face to face and have 2 or 3 powwows every day. And they're thinking, oh, I don't like talking. They might be great and get the job done, but they just want to sit there typing and not talk. You can go face to face. Or it could be the exact opposite. And that happens, and I've seen it. And unless you qualify that in the beginning when you're interviewing virtual assistants or talking about what you're looking for, you're going to come across these kinds of issues.
That's okay. That is some really good advice. Now I tell you what, and you can totally shut me down, shoot me from the sky with this one. The way I've been working with my team members is predominantly through using Slack as the messaging system. Using Skype for obviously video conferencing, and we might do a quick 10-15 minute call in the mornings when needed. Some team members obviously might only need a quick huddle, say every week, and using the project management Asana to have everything mapped out there. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, that's a pretty standard setup for someone working in a remote environment because everything is organized in Asana. You have immediate, back and forth on Slack. And then when we need to have a conversation face-to-face or just on voice, Skype works also. But, really it depends on each person's kind of character and workflow. Every business is different.
some people might be like, I mean, I've met people who are like this. They say, I don't even want to use project management software. These are the visionaries, right? These are the people whose heads in the clouds, and they don't want to get down and start logging in and typing things. So they'll want a virtual assistant who they'll say, look, I'm going to call you, or I'm going to, leave a voice recording, and you put everything into project management software, and you manage it all. And that's something that a lot of people wouldn't even think about. If you don't want to manage it, have someone else manage it, but make sure that you manage them managing it. Make sure that they're on top of it. Make sure that you can trust them. They're going to work independently, that they're going to deliver on time, and what they deliver is of quality. But it's a very, in my opinion, it's a very individual kind of relationship that you'll have with your remote workers or your project managers or your virtual assistants.
Awesome. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say that you choose what you want it to look like. You choose how you want to communicate with them.
When we're talking about GVA then, just to give the listener and the audience a bit of an idea, when it comes to the actual how much do I pay a GVA, and I know this is a super broad strokes question right now, but what's the actual amount someone could be looking at?
Well, I'll tell you, I have seen virtual assistants less than $1 an hour in Bangladesh, and I've seen virtual assistants in the United States for $250 an hour. So it really depends on where you want to come in. I personally have decided to build my company out of the Philippines only because that's the niche that I'm filling, where I was looking to give people quality work. They can get a cost saving from the United States. That's where I came from, and that's what I was doing it to support myself. That's what I was looking for at the time. Yep. And then my team fell into that category. But I've had such quality general virtual assistants, or more specific, web developers, graphic designers, people that we build out, $25 to $30 an hour. That's just the niche that I provided. Generally, a general virtual assistant in my company is anywhere from $6.25 an hour up to $15 an hour. Yep. This is U.S. dollars. Yep. The longer or more you commit, more hours per week with my company, the lower the price gets. Awesome. But it's so hard to generalize. It really depends on where you're going. If you're looking for very mathematical, linear thinkers, out of India or Eastern Europe, you can get, quality work at a very low price. But if you're looking for people who are creative and, you can talk to, that might not be the best place to go for that kind of work. It's a very individual thing, and that's the reason why things that are very, in my opinion, things that are objective versus subjective. Yes. When it's objective, it's like, was the job done? Wasn't it done? It's not like, well, we tried it this way. Well, look, was the job done or wasn't done? You can measure, and I've always thought about, like, heck, if I had that work fulfilled in Australia, United States, or the Philippines, nobody knows. Nobody knows who copied and pasted there. As long as the job got done, looking from, an outlook, the work was done, and ultimately, this is what I decided to pay for it. So it's a very individual thing to decide where do you want to come in and pay, and what do you think it's worth. Because, you as a business owner might feel there's certain things you want to get done in your business, but if you've got to, hire the kid around the corner who wants $35 an hour, who's got no college degree and, just thinks he's better than everybody, but might not even have to do quality work, you might not feel that it's worth that amount, and you can quality work in another country. And that's, the concept of geo-arbitrage is figuring out where can we get the same quality from a different location.
Beautiful. Okay, you've nailed these questions so brilliantly, Lewis. I really appreciate this. So where does the listener go now to find out more about what you're doing and the teams that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Chris. I'd be happy to chat with anybody personally. www.supremeoutsourcing.com is the website. You can see a list of all the kinds of services that we offer. All of our pricing is there. It's very transparent. Everything's very systemized, kind of like a conveyor belt. But the cool thing is, every virtual assistant or project manager that people get from us, really they become a part of the team. You know, we don't do project by project. We're looking for more long-term relationships where, you know, a lot of our clients, they look at our team members as part of their team, include them on conference calls and updates on the company. So really that's what we're looking for, and I'm happy to help and chat with anybody that, you know, comes as a referral from you.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'm definitely getting all my Pro Circle clients getting straight on board with you because I know so many of them actually just need this. So this is a beautiful answer that I'm going to be pushing and recommending them as well. Lewis, you've absolutely smashed this, mate. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing this. I know this is going to be a huge help. So I highly recommend, and I'll include the links actually in the description in the show notes for everyone that's listening and tuning in with us, either if you're on YouTube on the website or if you're on iTunes on the podcast. Lewis, thank you so much, sir. You've been an absolute delight.
I appreciate it, Chris. Great being here.
Now it's time for you to get the most out of this, and this is where I can jump in and give the answers that you need. So ask your questions in the comments below so I can personally come through and answer them for you. Plus, the best discussions happen on chrisdufay.com, so click on over to get everything that I've got there for you. And did you like this episode? Because if so, click subscribe so I can send you all the episodes to come for free straight to you. And for everything that I can't fit in these episodes, plus the free guides and coaching episodes, then click on over to chrisdufay.com now. Looking forward to seeing you soon and in the success community.